You're travelling through another dimension. A dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind. A journey into a wondrous land whose boundaries are that of the imagination. Next stop, the Michael Bartlett Channel. Hello and welcome back to my channel, and today I thought I'd count down my top 10 Twilight Zone episodes. And these are the classic Twilight Zone episodes from the late 50s and early 60s, not the later 80s ones. So I got into the Twilight Zone in my teens. Back in the late 1980s, Channel 4 started re-showing them, I think in order actually. And I really got into them. And what I really loved about the Twilight Zone was it wasn't so much the twist endings, right? It wasn't even the stories, which are mostly quite simplistic and sort of standard sci-fi fare. What I liked about it was the style. You know, I loved the opening music and the narration and the black and white photography and the 50s-ness of it all. You know, there were proper flying saucers and proper robots and proper spacesuits, you know, and men called Jock who went out into space, you know, and found some alien planet. And I loved it all, and I thought it was beautifully made. You know, it was very well directed, there was good dialogue. Lots of amazing actors at the start of their career, like Lee Marvin turns up, you know, is excellent in Steel. Do you remember the one where he fights the android boxer? William Shatner, of course, in 2 excellent episodes, which actually haven't made my list, but I like both of them. So it's a fantastic to see these actors, somewhere at the start of their career, sort of before they were famous, doing really, really good work. I also like things like, you know, I like Rod Serling turning up at the start with a cigarette in his hand and his, you know, the way he addresses the audience. All that sort of stuff in the 80s felt fresh to me. Because it was old-fashioned, but it was also kind of fresh because it wasn't like anything that was going on television at the time. So I really, really fell in love with it. That style of the series is the main reason why I've chosen this first episode in 10th place, and When the Sky Was Opened. Now, this is one of the early classics from the series, and it's a very simple story, right? These astronauts come back from some experimental mission out in space. They come back, and then what happens is they start disappearing. And once they've disappeared, all trace of them seems to be eradicated from the world, right? And so the main character is going hysterical. He's like, what's going on? You know, where are my mates going? And then he realises that he's going to go. And there's a very strange scene towards the end where he sort of almost feels a sort of euphoria, but says, no, stop it, I don't want to. And then he just vanishes. And all 3 of them have vanished from the world. And Rod Serling's ending narration says that something happened to them out there, we'll never know what it is. A lot of people find that ending a bit of an anticlimax, right? I like it. I like the pure simplicity of the episode. I like the fact that they just disappear. We never know what happened to them, and that makes it all the more mysterious and chilling. And the brilliance of the episode is that style I was talking about right at the beginning of the video. The sense of eeriness, which the Twilight Zone does so well. Even when the script is quite simple, it's the atmosphere that builds the tension. And it's brilliantly done in this episode. I think this is probably the best example of it in the series, where it's just pure style, pure atmosphere. Incidentally, right, when I was looking for this episode, I was talking with a friend about this, which episodes to choose, right? And I said, what's that one with 3 astronauts in it? And I didn't realise that there's quite a few episodes of the Twilight Zone with 3 astronauts. There's one called Elegy, where they turn up on this asteroid and everything's like a museum, and it's all very quiet and everyone's standing still. Do you remember that one? But the other 3 astronaut one, which I'm going to put at number 9, this is a very personal choice. And it comes from season 4. Season 4 is the odd one out in Twilight Zone. There was 5 seasons. And the reason why is because they had feature-length episodes. They were an hour long. And I think everyone agrees that wasn't a terribly good idea. Because one of the successes of the Twilight Zone episodes is that they're short, pithy stories. You know, they're short stories with a twist, a bit like Alfred Hitchcock Presents, but in a sci-fi mode. And that's where they're at their best. The stories are not complex enough to go over an hour length. And this episode that I'm going to pick also hasn't really got enough story to cover an hour. But I pick it because it made quite an impact on me. It's called Death Ship. And it's about 3 astronauts. They're in a lovely flying saucer, right? And they have to make a sort of forced landing on a planet. But when they get onto the planet, they see another ship crash landed. And when they go over, they realise it's their own ship. It has to be. It's exactly identical. And they realise, slowly but surely, that somehow they've jumped a time track and they've already died. And they're seeing the future of where they've got to. But one of them, the captain, played by cuddly Jack Klugman, who becomes a bit of a villain in this episode, he cannot accept it. And this is what really got to me when I first saw the episode as a teenager, and what quite frightened me actually. At the end of it, the two men on board have realised that they're ghosts, right? And they need to let go of their life, and they're prepared to do it. But Jack Klugman is not. He can't let go of life. So he forces them through his sheer willpower to keep going as spirits. And to keep going, they keep replaying endlessly this crash landing, trying to make it right, trying so that they don't crash. It's their kind of purgatory, it's their endless hell. And that idea that the willpower of one man as a spirit could force the others to keep going through hell really got to me as a teenager. It really made an impact on me. That's why I've chosen these episodes. They're the ones that had the most impact on me. Not necessarily the best written or whatever, but the ones that stayed in my memory. And this one certainly did. Another episode that stayed in my memory, I get the feeling that it's not very popular amongst Twilight Zone fans, but for some reason I really, really liked it. It's Twilight Zone doing Pirandello, but instead of 6 characters in search of an author, we've got 5 characters in search of an exit. Do you remember? It's the one where there's these kind of 5 like pantomime characters, like a soldier and a ballerina, and they're wandering around in this white TV studio void, and they don't know what's happening to them. And then right at the end, you find out that they're dolls in a little barrel that are sort of being given away to kids for Christmas. Do you remember this one? Not many people like it. All I can say is that as a teenager, I really, really loved it. I love the sort of abstract weirdness of it. You know, I mean, the actual sort of twist at the end is a bit silly, I suppose, but I just quite like that kind of thing. You know, 5 abstract characters just trying to work out where the hell they are and what the hell's going on. That kind of appeals to me. I don't know why. So that episode really makes an impact on me, but I don't think it's that popular with others. Let me know if you like it as well. I'll be interested. Now, the next one I chose is the very first syndicated episode, not the pilot, Where Is Everybody, which I happen to like. It's a bad rep, but I like that sort of thing where people emerge, you know, find themselves in a town and no one's there. I like all that sort of thing. But that's not what I've picked. It's the first syndicated episode, which is called The Lonely. Now, The Lonely is a bit of an odd story, right? It's about this guy played by Jack Warden. And the acting in this story is really good. It's a two-hander. Jack Warden is this convict. And his really horrible penalty for what he's done is that he has to spend something like 50 years on his own on an asteroid that looks a bit like the desert in Utah or somewhere. But yeah, he's got to spend... I mean, that's pretty harsh, isn't it? What did he do? I can't remember what he did, actually. Perhaps it tells you, but I don't remember. But this guy comes along, right, and he feels sorry for him. So he gives him a robot woman to spend his time with, played by Jean Marsh. Familiar name to Brits, of course, from Upstairs Downstairs, which she co-created. She was also in some early episodes of William Hartnell Doctor Who. Really good actress. And she plays this young, lovely robot that he spends time with, and of course he eventually falls in love with her. It's a very nicely played two-hander, actually. Really well acted by 2 very good character actors. Why it sticks in my mind, though, is the ending, right? So eventually this guy who gave him the robot, he comes back and says, mate, you've been pardoned, right? So he hadn't even done anything. But so you've been pardoned and you go back home. But he says, you can't carry any luggage, so you can't carry the robot. You've got to leave her behind, right? Awful. And by this time, of course, he's fallen in love with her and thinks of her as a woman. And then do you know what happens? The captain shoots her in the face. I was distraught as a teenager. You know, it's Jean Marsh. Blows her head off. And you see all the wires under her face. What a horrible thing to do. And he says to her, all you're leaving behind is loneliness. But it's just really nasty. And the end narration by Rod Serling is, you know, there's these things left behind of this man, the thing that he loved. It's devastating. Poor old Jean Marsh. So that's an episode that made a huge impact on me. Now, in 6th place, right, is one of the corniest of the Twilight Zone episodes, but I know it's an episode that everyone loves as much as I do. It's a very simple idea, brilliantly done, brilliantly directed, very atmospheric, very well shot. The idea is that a woman has gone into a hospital for plastic surgery because she thinks she's terribly ugly. Throughout, we don't see anyone's faces. We're sort of, you know, we're kept apart from the faces. Everyone is kept in shadow or out of screen, right? And of course, the reveal is at the end. She's had this cosmetic surgery to make her look nice, take off the bandages, and she looks lovely, but she's going, oh my God, no, it hasn't worked. And of course we turn the camera around and everyone else is incredibly ugly with funny little curled up lips. And of course on this planet that she's on, the way that she looks is ugly and the way that they look is beautiful. So it's very simple. Eye of the Beholder it's called, and that's the moral of the story. It's just really well done. It's really well engineered. It's really good fun. It's got a good little, the denouement is really well done. It's a really good twist. And so I picked it. I think it's one of my favourite episodes. Now in fifth place is one of the later season 5 episodes, which I don't tend to like as much. I think season 1 is really the best season of Twilight Zone. But this one is something special. It was directed by Jacques Tourneur. People who've watched this channel before know that he's one of my very favourite directors. He made the horror films with Val Lewton in the 1940s, Cat People, I Walked with a Zombie, The Leopard Man, and the brilliant British horror film Night of the Demon, just a few years before making this. And I think this was his last masterpiece. He's a director who's brilliant with atmosphere and with a sort of gentle sense of the supernatural, but a sort of brooding, gentle sense of it, really. And this is a simple story of an old woman who keeps receiving phone calls at night from this man on the end of the phone, sort of eerily voiced. And she thinks, what is this? And then she sees in the local cemetery a phone line has fallen down across the grave of a man she used to love. And she realises it's him trying to contact her. I won't spoil it any more than that. You've probably seen the episode. It's a very sad ending. It's a very devastating ending. But the beauty of it is the handling of Jacques Tourneur's direction. Lovely script, a nice two-hander between her and the woman who looks after her. I think this is something special. It's what the Twilight Zone does best, a kind of little playlet, a character study with a little sprinkling of the supernatural which genuinely gets to you. It's a really good episode. Now in fourth place is a masterpiece in style. I think probably the single best directed episode of The Twilight Zone, and that is Mirror Image. You know what I mean? Vera Miles at the bus stop, that one. Yeah, when she's, everyone seems to have said, I've just spoken to you, you just ordered that bus, you just bought the ticket, and then she looks in the mirror in the restroom and she can see a woman exactly like her, doing the things that she wants to do, and she feels that this mirror image world is taking over her world. That's it, really. There's no complexities in the story, there's not much characterization, but the build-up of tension and anxiety is fantastic. I think this is the Twilight Zone at full pelt, that sort of eeriness that the series is famous for, I think is best demonstrated in this episode. And I think Vera Miles, she's a good actress for this kind of thing. She anchors it really well. And I still, every beat of this episode stays with me. I really, really enjoy it. Now, my top 3, I went for some classics, some obvious choices, but, I love them as much as everyone else. And number 3, you've got to have To Serve Man. You've got to. It's just so good. It's a cookbook. It's one of those endings which is genuinely surprising, but also kind of funny at the same time. These aliens turn up. Richard Keel, who played Jaws later on in the Bond movies in an early role, is this great big thing called a Canamit with a big domed head. And these aliens come to Earth and offer us everything and make life nice. And then people start going off for a journey back to the Canamit home planet. What they don't realise is they're going off as food. Sometimes when I look around the world today, I think, would it be so bad if the Canamits turned up? I mean, okay, you might get taken off for food eventually, but in the meantime, it'd be a much nicer place to live. But anyway, so there's Jaws, and there's the main actor is played by Lloyd Bochner. Funny actor, he turns up in American TV series and films. I quite like him. He's quite a good leading man type, and he's good here. And I like his sort of his kind of hysterical fear at the end when he's taken off by Jaws. So I had to pick that one because it's one of the great twists in TV history. Next, The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. This is a classic piece of 50s paranoia, where these ordinary people on a street, they think that the aliens have invaded and that the aliens can disguise themselves as human beings, and they suddenly start, being paranoid about each other, who's amongst us trying to cause trouble, and eventually they start hating each other and fighting amongst each other. Then you pull back to the aliens in their craft, and they're saying that's all we needed to do, create a sense of fear, and they'll kill each other. It's a classic. a classic of paranoia. It sort of goes alongside things like Invasion of the Body Snatchers for that sort of special 50s period, that Cold War period of paranoia and fear, and it works brilliantly. Very, very good set of character actors playing the people on the street. Brilliant sense of rising tension. Very enjoyable. But you knew what I was going to put at number one, didn't you? I mean, this is me, right? Time Enough at Last. Burgess Meredith, the little bookworm, trapped in a world without people after the atom bomb, gets out of that bank vault, and then what does he find? A library. All those books he can read, and there's no one else around to bother him. I'm totally with him. Yes, who cares about all those people who died in the neutron bomb or whatever? I mean, whatever. We've got books now, we can read everything. We can read the whole of Dickens, the whole of Shakespeare. Brilliant. I finally get round to reading the whole of James Joyce's Ulysses. I'm totally with him. And then he breaks his glasses. The devastation of that moment. The little look of a little boy lost on Burgess Meredith's face. But there was time now. Of course, really, I mean, come on, Burgess. You could try a bit harder. I'm sure there's some spectacle shops where there's some lenses that are still around that you could use. I mean, come on, mate. You're better than that. But, that's not the point of the story. It's just devastating. And that end scene of Burgess Meredith, just this shattered little man amongst all those books pouring down the steps of that library. I mean, I think that's the most iconic image of the whole series for me. And it's the episode I go back to the most in my mind. So those are my 10 best episodes of The Twilight Zone. I'd love to hear what are your favourites. I know I've missed a lot out. Other ones I thought about. I didn't pick any of the sentimental ones, though. Walking Distance with Gig Young, is it? I think he's quite good. After Hours, the shop mannequin one, that was quite good. The Invaders, the one with Agnes Moorehead and the little alien people. The Midnight Sun, I think, is quite a good episode, where the Earth is getting closer to the sun, but you realise it's all a kind of dream. I think that's quite well played. Little Girl Lost, that's quite chilling. I didn't pick, an occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. I don't know if you know about this, but the last syndicated episode of The Twilight Zone, they actually pinched a French language movie based on the Ambrose Bierce story. It's actually quite good. It's quite distinctive, but that would be a complete cheat to include that because it's not really anything like the rest of the series. So I'm sure I haven't picked, some of your favourites, but those are mine. Let me know below. Thanks very much.